Dawn on D-Day. A 23-year-old Comanche hits the sand at Utah Beach and radios words no German had ever heard. His name is Larry Saupitty of the 4th Signal Company, 4th Infantry Division. He powers his set as naval guns thunder and surf lashes the beach. 2 short sentences travel into the chaos. We made a good landing. We landed in the wrong place. 60 miles away, in Saint-Germain-en-Laye, a German intercept operator leans into his headphones. He has studied English. He has mastered procedure. He hears only rhythm and grit and a tongue from the plains of Oklahoma. For the first time on a European battlefield, a Native American language moves faster than any cipher. To understand why that moment mattered, consider who is listening. For 5 years, German radio intelligence has been the finest on Earth. 12,000 specialists intercept, locate, decrypt, and evaluate from Norway to North Africa. They have cracked Czech traffic within hours. They have read Polish orders almost as fast as the Poles send them. They have followed the French High Command across a collapsing nation by tracing the signature of a single station. In the East, Soviet plain text has offered entire orders of battle. Even British discipline cannot hide all its seams. The lesson is simple. If an army uses a radio, sooner or later it becomes readable. Then the Americans arrive. At first they are cooperative. That is the German word. Net's easy to spot. Abbreviations that reveal nationality. Numbers read in a predictable way. And then, in the summer of 1942, the window slams shut. The first wall rises. It is invisible. It is not a cipher. It is a change in the air itself. An engineer in Chicago named Daniel Noble persuades the United States Army to abandon amplitude modulation for the front line and embrace frequency modulation. Very high frequency travels straight and then it stops. Line of sight. German stations far behind the front point their receivers west and hear nothing. With the backing of Edwin Howard Armstrong, the father of wideband FM, the Army tears up its plans and starts again. The SCR 508 appears in March of 1942 for tanks and jeeps. An armored column can speak clearly without lighting up the continent. Then comes the SCR 300, the walkie-talkie. 38 pounds on a soldier's back, 40 to 48 megahertz, 5 miles of clear voice from company to battalion. It enters combat at Anzio in January of 1944 and changes infantry war. And there is the SCR 536, the handy talkie. 5 pounds in one hand, 6 per rifle company, 1 for each rifle platoon, 2 for the weapons platoon, 1 for the company commander. Hundreds ride ashore with the 29th Division at Omaha. By the time the Germans capture a few sets in Sicily and call them extremely effective, American factories have already produced more than 130,000 handy talkies. German ears trained to hear everything now hear silence where the battle should be loudest. But FM cannot hide all. Higher nets still carry across distance. German operators aim their best English speakers and hit a second wall. It is not technical, it is cultural. German linguists learned English from literature, from the BBC, from formal procedure. British nets are clipped and predictable. Americans sound like America. A kid from Flatbush speaks twice as fast as any British officer and fills the air with a living slang. A machine gun becomes a chatterbox. Pancakes become collision mats. A position is all balled up. A platoon sergeant bought the farm. Send up the pineapples. And the acronyms: snafu, foobar, tarfu. To a scholar trained on Oxford English, this is not a sentence, it is noise. And every net sounds different. Boston and Mississippi, Montana and Detroit, Harlem and Appalachia. Informality is not a flaw, it is the culture. Procedure bends to speed and plain talk. British liaisons blanch at first names, jokes, and unguarded detail. German analysts receive perfect transcriptions and extract almost nothing they can use. Then comes the third wall, volume. In the weeks before D-Day, headquarters traffic alone in the European theater runs between 1.5 and 2 million cipher groups per day, before a single infantry net wakes up. The landings turn that river into a sea. A single American division fields more than 1,000 transmitters once armor, artillery, observers, and air support are counted. 6 divisions land on day 1. Within a month, more than 1 million men are ashore. German stations must choose what to cover and what to abandon. Intelligence has a shelf life. A battalion at grid such and such at 0900 is useful at 8:15. At noon, it is history. The German cycle needs hours. Under stress, it needs a day. The Americans move faster than the cycle can breathe. Even when a fragment is clear enough to read, it dies before it reaches a desk. Yet the strangest sound is still to come. The fourth wall arrives speaking languages that are not merely unfamiliar, but almost unknowable. A generation earlier, in the Meuse-Argonne, Choctaw soldiers in the 36th Division turned to battle by speaking their own tongue on tapped lines the Germans believed they owned. Between the wars, German and Japanese students study Native American languages. The task defeats them. Hundreds of languages, many without written form, grammar that shares nothing with Europe or Asia, no dictionaries, no footholds. So in 1940, the United States recruits 17 young Comanche men. They train at Fort Benning and build a code within a code. The Comanche language is the first layer. On top of it, they forge 250 special terms for war. Bombers are pregnant birds. Bombs are baby birds. Tanks are turtles. Machine guns are sewing machines. Adolf Hitler is crazy white man. When a term does not exist, they spell with random Comanche words, so even a Comanche outsider cannot follow. A machine might take hours to encipher and decipher a message. A code talker needs minutes. 13 land on Utah Beach. Larry Saupitty is among them. Messages flash Comanche to English and up the chain. German operators hear only music without notation. The code is never broken. Nor is the Meskwaki net of the 34th Division. 8 men from a small Iowa tribe send and receive under fire in North Africa and Italy. 3 are captured. The code holds because there is no system to solve. There is only a living tongue held by a few hundred people and carried into war by men once told their language had no value. The fifth wall is a machine. The Germans call it AM2. The Americans call it SIGABA. It stands 2 feet high and weighs over 100 pounds. 15 rotors in 3 banks turn letters into ciphertext so deep that no analyst in 1944 can see a way in. German cryptologists try for years and fail completely. Not one SIGABA message is read. Not one SIGABA unit is captured. Each is guarded with a 40-pound thermite charge that will melt the device into slag at 1,400 degrees centigrade. Strategic traffic lives behind this fortress. Eisenhower to Marshall, Army Group Coordination for Normandy. The Germans record the signals and learn nothing at all. There is a second American machine at the front, the M209. Small, portable, built by the tens of thousands. This one the Germans can break. By early 1943, they exploit a weakness when 2 messages share settings. At Saint-Germain-en-Laye, a cryptanalyst named Reinhold Weber builds an electromechanical assistant to accelerate the work. By August 1944, the device is ready, and the war has already raced past. Weber's unit evacuates and tries to burn its files. Americans later dig up thousands of sheets from hurried burials. The tragic truth is that what could be read was too late to matter. The Americans knew it would be. The M209 is fast and disposable by design. Tactical orders will be obsolete in hours. Everything that must remain secret lives on SIGABA. 5 walls, FM silence. Linguistic chaos. Overwhelming volume. Unidentifiable languages. An impregnable cipher for the matters that decide a continent. Any one barrier would trouble an enemy. Together, they turn Germany's finest ears into bystanders. And beneath those walls lies a foundation the German system cannot model. The German military excels at order, hierarchy, standard procedure, and central control. That strength wins campaigns in 1940 and 1941 and makes foreign armies readable because they share the same assumptions. The American system rests on distributed authority. A sergeant may call for fire. A young commander may redirect support in his own words. The radios are not simply gear. They are instruments of a philosophy that pushes decision-making downward and trusts the men on the spot. The technology follows the doctrine. The doctrine follows the culture. The diversity of voices on the net is not a failure of training. It is the sound of a vast nation talking at speed. When the guns fall quiet in May 1945, the echoes remain. Albert Praun, chief of Army and Armed Forces Signal Communications, writes the definitive German account. He catalogs the technical barriers. He feels something larger beneath them, a country that does not behave as expected. Reinhold Weber survives, and decades later tells how his machine worked and why it did not matter. Edwin Howard Armstrong, who gave FM to the war effort without fee, loses himself in legal battles and steps out a window in 1954. Daniel Noble returns to Motorola and helps build the world that lets ordinary people speak freely across distance. The Comanche Code Talkers come home to Oklahoma. In 1946, the town of Walters holds a homecoming. There is singing and there is dancing in the old way. Their service remains secret until 1968. Recognition arrives in 2013 when Congress awards the gold medal to code talkers from 33 tribes. Charles Chibity, the last Comanche code talker, passes in 2005, after saying with quiet pride that his language helped win the war. Larry Saupitty, who served as Theodore Roosevelt Jr.'s radio operator and driver, lives on for decades after the general dies in Normandy 5 weeks after the landing. Saupitty's war begins and ends with a radio, a voice, and a language no German could decipher. Why did German operators give up on American chatter? Because they were not facing a single code. They were facing a nation. Vast, noisy, informal, multilingual, and free. Speaking in every voice it had, across frequencies unheard, in dialects unparsed, in languages unnamed, at a speed and scale no enemy system could capture.